You never quite know how your day is going to turn out on the water, kind of like a pair of people found out this past week when they were boating around the Tampa Bay area, when all of a sudden they passed a large cruise ship and the massive wake from the cruise ship wound up capsizing their boat, sending the two into the water as well as their dog. Fortunately, another cruise ship's crew witnessed the situation and were able to alert local authorities of the issue, while the two wound up swimming to a buoy and awaiting rescue.
Where are y'all? Just y'all? Okay.
Just one of the wild things we will witness in this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. Our first story to make the boating news this week is going to take us over to Peru, where this was the scene just a little over a week ago, where the country wound up experiencing a natural phenomenon that had wave heights 3 to 4 times their normal height, crashing into small fishing communities and popular tourist areas, causing the government to wind up closing 100 of the country's 121 seaports for several days as they waited for the phenomenon to subside. The Peru Navy wound up issuing a report claiming they wound up rescuing as many as 30 fishermen who were trapped offshore due to the event, and claimed that at least 100, but probably closer to 200 more, were trapped offshore due to the closure of the ports. The fishing community in Peru is expected to take a heavy hit from this event, as many boats that were trapped offshore were unable to bring their catches in, and of course, as we see in these images, many more fishing boats were actually damaged by the wave event itself. At this time, there's no official report on how many fishing vessels were actually damaged or lost during the event, but to give you an example, just one fishing community in Peru alone is reporting having to have lost over 100 boats, letting us know that the number is likely going to be extremely high. The incident lasted for almost 6 days before the waves finally started to calm back down toward their normal heights. When asked to explain the phenomenon, civil defense officials pointed to climate change. A spokesman told the AP that it was being caused by a combination of strong winds blowing toward the coast from as far away as the United States. They also claimed that the tides were abnormally high. However, they did dismiss reports of it possibly being caused by a tsunami or similar events, instead saying it was a persistent weather pattern causing the larger waves. The officials also claimed they predict Peru would continue to experience more and more of these type of weather phenomenons as global temperatures continue to rise. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us up to Washington State, where this was the scene just a little over a week ago, where a man and his dog had to be rescued off of their sailboat. The incident occurred near Port Townsend, according to the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. The incident was reported approximately 7 a.m. when a Good Samaritan saw the man and his dog out in the bay trying to navigate the sailboat, but were struggling significantly. Fortunately, the Good Samaritan wound up calling 911 and alerting the local authorities to the situation that was developing. Both the U.S. Coast Guard and the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office launched teams to the scene to try and assist the struggling boater, but by the time they arrived, the sailboat had already run aground near Larry Scott Trail, leaving the sailor and his dog stranded on the boat as waves pounded their vessel into the shoreline. Both the U.S. Coast Guard and the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office quickly jumped into action to try and rescue the two off the vessel, first pulling the dog off the boat, bringing him to shore and leashing him for the protection of the dog and the crews. Next, they went to work on trying to get the man off the ship as well. As you can see, a U.S. Coast Guard swimmer standing on the water's edge, working to assist the gentleman off the boat and back up to the shore. Fortunately, in this situation, things turned out just fine, as the crew was able to pull the two off the boat and bring them to shore safely without any injuries. Due to the weather conditions at the time, the vessel was left on the beach with plans to hopefully come back and try and pull it off the beach once the conditions calm down. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us over to Puerto Rico, where this was the scene just about a week ago when Coast Guard crews wound up having to rescue 2 men after their 24-foot fishing vessel ran out of fuel and wound up capsizing approximately 5 miles south of Desechio Island. The Coast Guard Sector San Juan watchstanders received an unregistered digital selective calling alert at approximately 1 p.m., followed by a phone call from a Good Samaritan reporting a disabled vessel off Desechio Island. The watchstanders also then received a distress call on VHF Channel 16 around 4 p.m., approximately 3 hours after the original DSC alert was sent out, from the 2 men claiming they were on board their disabled vessel and stranded. The Coast Guard launched an air crew to the scene, and upon arrival, they spotted the two boaters on board their vessel wearing life jackets, and moments after arrival, the boat took a wave and wound up capsizing, sending the two into the water. Fortunately, the Coast Guard crews were able to pull them both out of the water without injury. Thanks for watching, crew. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. If you ever see anything crazy happening out on your waterways, be sure to hit us up on Facebook or Instagram and let us know when you might see your stories over here. And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and drop an anchor on the subscribe button.